I start to get this feeling that the prepper community is becoming um, numb, numb to um, the realities that we live in, numb to the fact that the debt ceiling could fall through today. Williamsburg. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ian. I got you, bro. I could read between the lines. I appreciate you though. And it's a little alarming. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about this. Is almost kind of a freebie thing, and this is almost kind of a walkthrough for my Patreons as well. If you're not a member of the Patreon, then you should probably go do something mean to yourself. I don't know. I can't think of a reason for anybody not to be a member of the Patreon. One of the first things that I tell them when they join is to download and do a few things. And I see a lot of them that don't actually do it. So one of the things that I wanted to show you guys today is actually something pretty simple. This is one of the documents right here that I'm going to push one of these buttons. Hopefully it all works just fine. I'm not sure. This one right here, that's not it. That's not it at all. That's nowhere close to it. There we go. I'm going to share this one, and that should have done that. Okay, so this is the Beginning Prepper Seminar. Okay, the Beginning Prepper Seminar is actually pretty simple. And it starts with, a prepper's mentality. Mental preparedness is one of the most overlooked parts of emergency preparedness. I would argue that it is the most important part of successful prepping. Now, why? Because if you're not mentally prepared for a disaster, it won't matter much how much gear or supply that you have stockpiled. You'll make bad decisions and you put yourself and your family in danger. I've been lucky to be one of those people that can be dropped into a situation and thrive. I don't think we need to see that. Let's just look here. Let's just close that out right there. Um, I don't tell you that to toot my own horn. I'm telling you that because you can be the same way. A big part of mental preparedness is what is termed in the community as emergency conditioning. This involves imagining bad scenarios in detail. You can essentially trick your brain into thinking you've gone through the experience. It does happen. You'll be more likely to, if it does happen, you'll be more likely to respond correctly to the disaster. An example that I talk about is in this mental conditioning is how the Blue Angels will actually sit at a table before they fly and talk through their entire mission. Not like have a conversation, but actually do all of the radio call outs. They'll sit there with their eyes closed, their hands pretending that they're on stick and throttle, and they'll visualize what they're going through. Now, the reason they do that is because it trains their mind to know what the next step is, to think through what is actually going to happen, and at some point you have to come to terms, with your hardships and you'll face during, what I call a crisis event. But that's a conversation for another day. What is mental toughness? Mental toughness, it's tactics to improve mental preparedness. And one of the first things is conduct a threat assessment. One of the main principles of disaster preparing is that anything can happen, but you have to focus on the worst case scenarios that are likely to affect us. You can't prepare for everything, and it's just not practical to even try. You should focus on the most likely disasters of crisis events. For instance, if you live on the East Coast, it's going to be hurricanes, winter storms, and those are going to be your primary environmental threats. If you're in the Midwest, it's tornadoes and blizzards, and if you can, hopefully you can see where I'm going with this, but what about economic collapse or martial law or even that endemic thing that starts with a P that we can't talk about, once you've identified threats, you can take some time to learn about what typically happens during these events. When you know what to expect, you'll be able to prepare better. Now, there's basically there's several of the what they call the most likely disasters to plan for. It's hurricanes, floodings, earthquakes, electromagnetic pulse, which is a grid outage situation, war, and nuclear disasters. And examples of that is, I used to live in Hurricane Alley in North Carolina. Almost every track of NOAA's hurricane website goes straight over my old house. When the big ones would come, I would be out of power for at least 10 days. So I definitely had to have a plan. You know, we had pre-made wooden shutters that we could put over our glass windows. We had battery banks that were fully charged. The upstairs tubs were filled with water. We had the water bladders. And we made sure that our generators were full of gas. And then there's lots of other things on the checklist, but I think you guys are kind of figuring out what we're talking about here. You know, we also need to conduct a preparedness assessment, and we're going to go into that in detail today because I think there are a lot of people that are dropping the ball in these particular scenarios, and I want to make sure that they're taken care of. Disaster prepping should always be done with a plan, until you know how to, until you know how prepared you really are, you won't be able to make a good plan. Example of that is, I've been camping and backpacking for a long time, and you know, uh, long before I ever even got into prepping. So when I did start prepping, I already had a lot of gear like water filters, sleeping bags, stoves, etc., and also a lot of essential survival knowledge. But most homes lack the storage of basic provisions like food and water. It's kind of scary. It's like I want to be a prepper, but I've got no place to put my stuff. And a preparedness assessment involves going through the supplies in your home to see what you have. It also involves asking yourself questions like, how would your family get in contact if a disaster struck while you weren't home? That we're talking about a comm plan now, which guarantee most people don't have. Once you've done the preparedness assessment, you're going to be able to focus, on your weak areas. This is going to allow you to budget for your time and money more effectively. Another thing that we can talk about is making a prepping budget. There's no denying that disaster preparedness costs money. If you follow the standard advice on prepper websites, where they're trying to get you to buy the high end gear, and then lots and lots, it's a lot of money is going to get spent. Even if you have a lot of money to spend, you shouldn't rush off and buy every cool piece of survival gear you see. Many of these items provide a false sense of security and don't actually help you with core survival needs. To make sure you're spending your money wisely, you will need to make a prepping budget. To do this, it's actually pretty simple. Do an assessment, which we just talked about. Make a list of things you need to buy. Determine which items are most important, like food and water. Budget money towards each priority. And lastly, decide how much money you want to invest each month towards prepping. It really does come down to that. And I think when we talk about the preparedness mindset, the last thing that we want to talk about is building your supply community. Building your survival community. A lot of popular preppers preach the mantra, never talk about your preps. The idea is that if your neighbors know about your prepping, they'll come knocking on your door during a crisis of Kent, aka SHTF. I don't agree with this approach. Rather, I believe that you should instead get your neighbors involved in prepping too. The more people around you who are prepared, the better off all of you will be. And it can be difficult to talk about disaster preparedness with friends and family. A lot of people still think of prepping as something that's crazy or extreme, but prepping has gone more mainstream lately. It's estimated that 45% are now preparing in some way. This is up from 20% just 2 years ago. And as crisis events become increasingly more common, people are waking up to the need to prepare. I have a saying that lone wolves die. Or a lone wolf is a dead wolf. The lone wolf dies without a pack. Many survivalists talk about how they're going to set off into the wilderness alone at the first sign of a disaster. Truthfully, your chances of survival are much better when you have a group of people to help. I won't be leaving my loved ones, my shelter, or my preps behind. Now, organizing a survival or prepper group or MAG isn't something that happens overnight. It may even take months or rely on a disaster, but, this is something to start thinking about from outside or from the outset of prepping. Now, why did I thought, guys? Because I don't think that anybody has done any of those things. I don't think that anybody has, let's check the chat and see if what people are talking about. Where are we at here? Hicktown Honey is here. Thank you, Hicktown Honey. I frequently think through different scenarios and make lists as to steps I should follow, grab, or do. Excellent. What's up, Jellyback? Good to see you. Categorize preps before, during, and after an event. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. And people are just saying hi. Nice. All right. So let's go on over to the Rumble side. Everybody was saying good morse. Is anybody else having freezing issues? Just Hicktown Honey, just refresh your browser. That's the only thing you can do. Or you can roll to YouTube. No, I'm having it too. Okay, I refreshed, but no luck. Gotcha, Hicktown. Yeah, I don't understand why it happens. Matter of fact, I just saw it's frozen on mine as well. But it appears to be working now that I have refreshed my browser. So let's see. Let's see here. Don't get lost in the gun store. Prep your Savage Lee. I don't recognize you. Thanks for coming in here. I'm going to pop that on there because I think it's relevant. So Savage Lee says, try to remember, don't get lost in the gun store. Prep for your pets too and stack food first. Last always. Hopefully you will never need a gun. You always need food. Bye. Well, hopefully you didn't run off, man, because this is good advice. This is good advice. It's what we call the big blue arrow type of advice, where all of it's true, but it doesn't really pertain to what we're talking about at this very second. But we're going to get into some of that. And I thank you. But love your AR-15s. Yes, rabbit. Let's see here. Viking Queen. Oh, my God. I have not seen you in forever, girl. Hopefully everything is going well with you. Tiger 13. I guess this is Tigress. Tiger 13 us. Tigress. It's easy to talk about, but no one listens. Yeah, well, it's about perspective. It's about relating to somebody. There are ways that you can talk to people that will kind of shed light on what you're talking about. Maybe bring it into their little bubble. But you're right. It's a lot of people don't live. So let's see. Leroy says, Savagely provides some solid advice. Nice. That's why I moved. That's why Mike Downey says, that's why I moved to Clapper. Gotcha. Large groups in Texas, Rick Roberts says. Yeah, there are, but you got to be, I don't want to say you have to be careful. What I'm going to say is that you have to especially the larger groups, don't get sucked into the idea of being welcomed in. Okay. There are some things that happen in large groups, in small groups, that I'm not a fan of. One is, a probationary period is not a bad idea, but it's basically be a good boy and prove to us. And there are some things that are inherently wrong with that idea, but there's also things that are very good about the idea for the group. It's good for the group, but not good for the individual. So And then there was something else I was going to tell you. Yeah, I would also be wary of larger groups because they tend to have a section within them. They tend to be very organized, and one of those sections tends to be security or patrolling or nothing but pew pew stick. They're kind of the tactical guys, and that's fine. I think that those skills are necessary, but they always forget that they think that they're the only shooters, and they always forget that everybody in a mag is a shooter. Everybody is security.